councillors, staff. Another lovely morning in November. Might be the last, so please enjoy it. Calling the Municipal Council for November 1st, 2022 of the Municipality of County of Kings to order. And we'll begin, as we do, with roll call, please. For those new to our chambers, there's about a 10-second delay on the votes and questions like roll call, and then the answers appear on the screen as councillors enter their votes or their presence in this case. All councillors are present with the exception of Councillor Meisner. The group has been advised of the reasons for Councillor Meisner's absence. If anyone feels that she should be excused by Council from attendance at this meeting, a motion would be in order. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Allen, that Councillor Meisner's absence from this meeting be excused. All those in favour or otherwise, please vote now. The purpose in voting on a matter such as this is that the Municipal Act is specific in saying that if a councillor without reasonable excuse misses a meeting, 3 meetings in a row, then they lose their seats. So it's important that these things be considered. So Councillor Meisner's reasons have been accepted, and it's unanimous that we excuse her attendance. Moving on then to approval of the agenda. Any questions concerning the agenda before I take a motion? Seeing none, a motion to approve. Councillor Allen, was that a motion to approve or a question? Yes, and seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any debate? All those in favour or otherwise, please vote now. And again, for the purposes of those listening online and of the audience, that motion's been unanimously passed. And once an agenda has been approved, it's important that once we've laid that in place, that every councillor who now knows what's on the agenda for discussion, if they have any matter on the agenda concerning which they might have a personal or financial interest in, they have an opportunity to disclose whether they have a conflict with regard to that question, and now would be the appropriate time if there are any conflicts of interest to disclose. Seeing none, moving to item 4, which is the approval of the minutes of September the 20th, October the 4th, and October the 18th. First, has anyone noticed any errors or omissions in those minutes? No? Then I'm looking perhaps for a motion to approve all 3. Moved by Councillor Harding, seconded by Councillor Granger. Any discussion regarding the motion to approve? Seeing none, all those in favour or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimous, thank you. And looking at the minutes of September the 20th, does anyone wish to raise any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, then October the 4th, any business to arise from those minutes? And October the 18th? No? Moving on then, thank you. Item 5 has been looked after. Item 6, Planning Advisory Committee recommendations from October the 11th. And I'm going to Councillor Armstrong as Chair of the Planning Advisory Committee. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor. The first item before us this morning is that Municipal Council appoint the following responsible organization members for 1-year terms and the citizen member for a 2-year term for the Kingston Area Advisory Committee. Responsible organization members are Commissioners Wayne Fowler, Commissioner Lauren Avery, Commissioner Neil Larder, and citizen member Paul McNeil. I so move.
Thank you. And the seconder, the Deputy Mayor, any discussion regarding the recommended appointments? Thank you. We all know these have been vetted by the committee responsible for nominations. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimous, and congratulations to the appointees. Item B.
That municipal council give initial consideration to and hold a public hearing regarding entering into a development agreement to permit a change of non-conforming use in a structure to a use similar in nature that is not permitted in the zone located on a portion of the property at 3-4 Sun Valley Drive, PID 55374-086 Aylesford East, as described in Appendix D of the report dated October 11, 2022. I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Killam. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimous. Thank you. And moving to item C, an application to rezone a property in Wolfville Ridge.
That municipal council give first reading to and hold a public hearing regarding rezoning the southern portion of the property located at 1299 Ridge Road, PID 551-90854 Wolfville Ridge, from the rural mixed-use A2 zone to the rural commercial C4 zone, as shown in Appendix F of the report dated October 11, 2022. I so move.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Windsor, any discussion on the motion? Councillor Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor. We are certainly hearing a very engaged discussion in the public domain on this item, and that's what our democracy is all about. So I know it will continue, and at some point in time, it's going to come back for a second reading. Just a note, Mayor, I just hope that when we come back for the second reading after that public hearing, I just hope that there's separation. It wouldn't be a public hearing that then flows into a council meeting, but there will be separation so that what is said in the public domain can be treated meaningfully and given full consideration, and perhaps even separate from the emotion of a lively public hearing. So I just hope that we do that in that kind of manner on a matter that's so complex and engaging of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be voting in favor of this because I believe that we need to get it to a public information meeting or a public hearing.
Public hearing.
Yes, sorry. We've already had the PIM meeting. I've heard endless comments, and there's a common thread that people are against it. So I think it's important that the public have an opportunity to speak in one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lutz.
Thank you. Very much just echoing the comments of my colleagues, Councillor Windsor and Councillor Allen, that I am looking forward to hearing what the public has to say. They've been very organized and they have presented lots of information to council up until this point. So I am looking forward to hearing that in the public domain, getting it all got sort of out and having the conversation and the presentation. So that was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My comments are somewhat the same. I took the opportunity to listen to the Planning Advisory Committee recording. Whether we change our procedure with respect to the matter is an issue for further discussion, but certainly it's something that should go to public hearing so that every person who has an interest has an opportunity to speak before the entire council. All that said, and no other lights being on, all those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. That's unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
That municipal council give initial consideration to and hold a public hearing regarding entering into a development agreement to permit up to 5 recreational cabins at 1439 Baxter Harbour Road, PID 550113332, which is substantively the same for minor differences in form as the draft set out in Appendix D of the report dated October 11, 2022. I so move.
Thank you, and do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Granger. Thank you, Councillor Granger. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. Thank you. That also is unanimous. Councillor, the next item, please.
The Municipal Council give first reading to and hold a public hearing regarding an amendment to the text of the land use bylaw to include existing forest industry uses in the list of permitted uses in the agricultural A1 zone as described in Appendix A of the report dated October 11, 2022. I so move.
Thank you. And the seconder, please. Seconded by Councillor Windsor. Discussion on the motion. Seems appropriate. There being no further discussion, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimously passed. Thank you. And Councillor, with regard to the next public meeting, do we have a date?
The next public hearing will be held Tuesday, December the 6th, 6 p.m. in these chambers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Item 7, administration. We're looking now to, I'm sure, what some have been looking forward to with anticipation. The election of our deputy mayor, and I'm going over to the clerk for an explanation of the procedures and the manner in which we go forward with this item. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council and members of the public, staff. So I'll be just presenting a brief presentation first, and then we can go into the election. Excuse me. So just a little bit of background first. Why are we having an election for the position of Deputy Mayor? That's because Council elected Councillor Lutz as Deputy Mayor for a 2-year term 2 years ago on November 3rd, 2020. That was the start of this Council. There are 2 years remaining in the term of this Council. So we need to have another election for Deputy Mayor. This is governed by Municipal Government Act, Section 16, and our the Municipalities Meetings and Procedure Bylaw, Sections 2 to 5. With regard to the term of office, so there are 2 years remaining in the term of this Council, but Council has the option to set the term for either 1 or 2 years for the position of Deputy Mayor. It is outlined in the MGA, again in Section 16, that prior to the selection of the Deputy Mayor, the Council shall determine the term of office. So that would be the first step that we have to take. So first, in terms of process, Council determines the term of office by motion. Then the Mayor will call for nominations. Nominees would either accept or decline the nomination. The Mayor will ask for nominations 3 times. Nominations are then closed by motion, and nominees will then have the opportunity to speak to their nomination. If there's only 1 nomination, obviously that candidate would be declared the new Deputy Mayor by acclamation. If there's more than 1 nomination, then Council votes by ballot. That would be vote number 1. I will be handing out ballots and then taking them in again and counting those ballots. If there's a majority vote, the Deputy Mayor is declared for the term as determined by Council. If there's no majority at that point, the nominee who received the least number of votes will be dropped from the ballot, and Council votes again. That would be vote number 2. Of course, there's also the possibility of a tie. In that case as well, that would be a second vote. If there's still no majority after that second vote, again, the nominee with the least number of votes would be dropped from the ballot, and there would be one additional vote, vote number 3. Our bylaw 64 specifies only those 3 votes, and if the vote is still tied after those 3 votes, bylaw 64 states that the clerk shall determine the deputy mayor from the 2 leading candidates by lot, as provided in the Municipal Government Act, the Municipal Elections Act, and that simply the Municipal Elections Act describes this as placing the names of candidates on equal size pieces of paper placed in a box with one name being drawn by the clerk. So that would be then the final step. We'll see if we get to that point. Simple recommendation to just receive the briefing that was in your package on the election of deputy mayor. So that is the recommendation, and I'll be happy to take any questions before we go into the process.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First, any questions of clarification for the clerk? No questions of clarification? Then I'm looking for a motion that we receive the briefing just presented by the Deputy Clerk. Moved by Councillor Allen, and it's seconded by Councillor Armstrong. No discussion? All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimous. Thank you. Now, Councillor Armstrong, your light's on. Is that for... Okay. Well, what we're dealing with first, of course, is the term of office. So, Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that Municipal Council maintain status quo of a 2-year term for the Deputy Mayor of the Municipality of the County of Kings.
Thank you. I know I have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Windsor. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Harding?
No, sorry.
Okay. And did you want to speak to the motion, Councillor Armstrong?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
Oh, that says one. There we go. 2-year term. Thank you.
Okay. Then you see the motion, and there being no discussion, all those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. That's passed unanimously, thank you. So we have 2 years left in our term, and the Deputy Mayor who appointed today will serve out the balance of this Council's term. And our next item, of course, has to do with who wishes to put their hat in the ring and who will be nominated. You have the right to nominate yourselves if you wish. You need only get a seconder for your nomination. So first of all, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate Councillor for District 7, Emily Lutz, for the position of Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Is there a seconder for the nomination? Councillor Allen seconds the nomination. Any further nominations? Councillor Harding.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate Joe Hurdle for Deputy Mayor.
Okay, we have Councillor Hurdle nominated, seconder for the nomination. Is there a seconder for the nomination? Thank you, Councillor Windsor. It's good to get 2 on the ballot. Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Last time, any other nominations? Seeing none, nominations are closed. We are now into an election. Each each of the contestants for the position are now congratulating one another that they're on there. And the ballots are being printed. In the meantime, the two nominated councillors have an opportunity for up to 5 minutes each to address council and convince council as to why they would be the appropriate candidate. If you choose to take the opportunity to address council, if you choose not to, that's entirely adequate as well. Going alphabetically, Councillor Hurdle, would you like to address council?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, friends and colleagues, and those in attendance and those listening in. I won't take 5 minutes. I'd rather hear what others around the table have to say. And it does feel strange to say good morning in a council meeting, and I appreciate the accommodations made for all those involved here today to allow us to attend an SFM conference meeting tonight. It's been a little over 2 years since this council was sworn in, and some days it feels like 2 weeks. That time has certainly zoomed by. I've made a similar speech 2 years ago with much less experience upon receiving nomination on our first council night for deputy mayor, but a lot has changed. When I agreed to accept that nomination, I did not know what I did not know. I had a small idea what it might be to act as a municipal councillor, but I really could only imagine what the job entailed. And at that time, I did not know what it really meant to chair a meeting or to do any of the unwritten tasks councillors take on. I needed the time to grow, learn, and get to work in understanding my role and how to work as a component of council. I accepted that nomination because in any democratic process, it's important to be provided choice, but no offense to my colleague at the end of the table. I was incredibly happy to have our deputy mayor currently as a role model to learn from, and to have 2 years to develop my own strength as councillor before taking on a nomination again for the role. In the 2 years that have passed, I've reoriented my life to ensure I take on the incredible opportunities and responsibilities of council, and I've made sure to demonstrate that I can take on the responsibilities that will come with deputy mayor. With all humility intended, I am ready to start the role and the work today. I made sure I've taken on the necessary learning opportunities as councillor to strengthen my role coming into deputy. I feel we currently have an incredibly strong deputy mayor, but I believe it would be a strengthening move of council to allow me the opportunity to step in her large shoes and demonstrate my own strengths that I have solidified over these past 2 years. It would be a strengthening vote to demonstrate to the public that we have more than one councillor who is capable of filling in that role. And I trust that everyone around this table would also do excellent work at filling in the role as deputy mayor. As deputy mayor, I'll provide the necessary balance of the role. I will provide a listening ear to my colleagues and promise to absolutely take on the role in all seriousness that is necessary. I humbly ask that all my friends and colleagues around this table to write my name on the ballot, and with that, I thank you for this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. And Councillor, for the moment, Lutz, would you like to address the gathering?
I would, thank you. And thank you for your comments, Councillor Hurdle. And thanks to my colleague for the nomination this morning. I appreciate your continued support. So I have been deputy mayor for some time, and I have to say, of the time I've done it, the last 2 years have been by far my favorite, because we have such an incredible team of councillors around this table. And the joy I feel when I come here and am able to work with you folks is really unparalleled. So I do want to say thank you for the nomination, and I also want to clarify that I will not take it all personally if council decides to shift their thinking or direction on who should fill the role of deputy mayor. As mentioned by Councillor Hurdle, I think any one of us has the capabilities, the education, the background, the heart, the passion to fill the role. And I do have a lot of respect for Councillor Hurdle for putting his name forward, because it is not an easy thing to do when we have an established team, and when it's just to put your name forward in offering of the county, I think is very admirable and respectable, and I really do appreciate, Councillor Hurdle, you putting your name forward today, so thank you. Of course, being deputy mayor isn't the only way we develop skills on council. We have lots of leadership opportunities through our committees in the community and other opportunities. So in my mind, I feel confident that the role of deputy mayor should be filled by someone who's ready to take on the role of mayor at any moment in case the mayor is unable to fulfill his duties for whatever reason. And I've had to do that a few times in the last few years, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy being a team leader on this council. And I feel like I've worked really hard to develop the skills to fulfill this role to the best of my ability and to serve council and the mayor in this capacity. I've worked really hard, particularly on becoming a good meeting chair, and I really enjoy leading the committee of the whole meetings, and I feel I've been able to do it with an efficient, fair, and humorous way. And I really do try to bring humor to every meeting. And I just feel that folks today should vote based on their true feelings and not make their decision based on anything beyond what they think is best for the council and for the county. It's been an incredible honor to serve in this job as long as I have, and I hope I get to continue doing it. I will cherish the opportunities I've had, the relationships I've developed as being part of the senior management, senior leadership team at the county, and bringing my perspective to the table has been a true privilege. So thanks, Councillor Hurdle, for allowing us the opportunity to engage in democracy and make a little speech about why we think it's important. And thanks to my councillors this morning for being here and all you do. Thanks.
Thank you both for your presentations. I'm sure, or not sure, who knows in elections, right? Whether you've swayed anyone one way or the other. So it's all a mystery until we, as it is in general elections, until we mark our X in the box. So if you would vote now, please, then the clerk will come and fold your vote, and the clerk will come around and collect. Now, it is the intention, but I will be asking for a motion at the end of the process. It's been the custom, and would be my intention, if you permit, that at the end of the process, after the votes are counted, that we destroy the ballots and that we simply announce a win as opposed to a number of votes one side or the other. So the clerk will return in a few moments. While we're waiting for that, councillor appointments to nominating committee is going to be dealt with by the clerk when she returns. We'll be looking at a proposed motion to repeal policy HR-06-021, the COVID vaccination regulation. That we've already passed a preliminary motion and given notice and advertised it, and this would be a motion of final approval. 7 days notice of that was provided on October the 4th. Then we'll be moving into inspection and enforcement services and receive a report from Mr. Brown. As you all know, we've been encountering some unprecedented issues in housing and construction applications. and staffing has become an issue with virtually all municipalities, so I'm looking forward to that presentation. And then, with any luck, we'll be able to conclude our meeting after hearing from the public in time to make it to Halifax for 3 o'clock for the Rural Caucus meeting, which is scheduled at that time. So the clerk has delivered the results to me. I just opened them up and saw a blank page. It gave me a fright. The successful candidate for the position of Deputy Mayor is the current Deputy Mayor Lutz. Congratulations. And now I'm looking for a motion to destroy the ballots. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Harding. Any discussion, Councillor Windsor?
A general comment, Mayor. This kind of a vote is always challenging when you're choosing one over the other, but we're really choosing one amongst equals. And I know from the experience of this council that this election is now behind us, and we will continue to do the business of today with full commitment and vigor as we have in the past. I congratulate Joel, and I congratulate our Deputy Minister, who's done an admirable job in the past. And yeah, so onward and upward. Thank you.
We don't know whether Deputy Minister was a slip or a prediction, but
I've used that term many times. I guess it's from my past environment.
there you go. Thank you for your comments, to which I'm sure we all subscribe. So, any comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That is unanimous. Thank you. The ballots will be destroyed. And Madam Clerk, if you wouldn't mind just picking this up from me before it disappears into the ether here. Thank you. And I believe you're also next on the agenda. Councillor appointments to Nominating Committee. I'm sorry, your light's not on. Just one moment. There you go.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So our next item is councillor appointments to the Nominating Committee. As you all know, the Nominating Committee is a committee of council. It's governed by the Nominating Committee bylaw, number 54. The Nominating Committee comprises the mayor and 3 councillors, and bylaw 54 dictates that councillor appointments to the Nominating Committee have to happen at the regular council meeting in November of each year. So that's where we are today. Bylaw 54 provides 2 options. Council may appoint 3 councillors, or council may authorize the mayor to appoint 3 councillors. If council chooses option 1, in the annual appointment process to boards and committees, the form that you've all been asked to complete to indicate your preferences as to which boards and committees you would like to be appointed to. There were no councillors that asked to be appointed to or to be removed from the Nominating Committee. The current members of the Nominating Committee are Councillors Allen, Armstrong and Hurdle, and Council has the option to reappoint these 3 councillors. If Council chooses option 2, there would be a motion to authorize the mayor to appoint 3 councillors, and the mayor would then notify Council of the names of those 3 councillors following this meeting. Once the 3 councillors have been appointed to the Nominating Committee, the committee would then meet within a couple of weeks, mid-November, to review all of the annual councillor and citizen member appointments to boards and committees, and recommendations would then go to the December 6th council meeting. And the recommendation is to receive the briefing on councillor appointments to the Nominating Committee dated November 1st, 2022 for information, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions of clarification for the clerk on the process? There are none. Thank you. Could I have a motion to receive the recommendation, please? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion on the motion. That Council receive the briefing on Councillor appointments to the Nominating Committee dated this date. Seeing none, all those in favour or otherwise, please vote now. Thank you. The motion is unanimous. Councillor Windsor being a little slow to get to the trigger there this morning. So, here's what you're faced with, is whether or not you wish to proceed with nominations for the nominating committee at this point in time, in which case we'd be looking for volunteers for the position or outright nominations from fellow councillors. And then we would have an election, depending on the number nominated. We're looking for 3, of course. The mayor is ex officio on that particular committee. The second choice is to pass a motion to have the mayor appoint or choose those 3 persons. That has happened in the past, but it's I always favor it coming from the floor if it can. But if that's a process that is within your jurisdiction to determine. So let's start talking about the issue. Councillor Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this is one of those places where it's great to give the mayor, who has such an overarching view of all the committees, all the memberships, and the councillors here, to make the choice. So it would be my motion to have the mayor appoint the members to the nominating committee.
Are you making that motion? Do we have a seconder for the motion? Second. I thought I was going to get off easy there for a minute, Councillor Killam. Seconded by Councillor Killam. Any discussion on the motion? Let's debate the motion, because if it's, this is not a contentious issue one way or the other. If you'd rather have it done from the floor, then your obligation is to defeat this motion. If you'd rather I take on the initiative to appoint those 3 councillors to the nominating committee, then you should be voting in favour of it. So let's discuss. Deputy Mayor Lutz.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to clarify something. When Yanni indicated that there was no one that asked to be appointed to or removed from in our councillor selection. So does that mean that the 3 folks currently on the nominating committee did all express interest in remaining on it, or that no one was interested at all in serving? Okay, so is it that?
You're going to get the question answered.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor, that's a really difficult question, and it was simply not indicated on the form, but I obviously can't read the minds of the 3 current members of the nominating committee, whether they would be okay with staying on.
So you would have to risk, take a little jump of faith here and decide perhaps to defeat this nomination, or you could ask the individuals here this morning if they wish to remain on the committee. But that doesn't mean that if you pass this motion, I would pick those 3 individuals. I'm just saying. Councillor Windsor, I'm sorry, you were on once already.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify that Hindi call, it was all the other committees that were the focus, and that the process today would determine how the nomination committee would be constructed, what that process was. So it really didn't ask, so that's why you probably didn't get, why the clerk's answer was as it was. She couldn't answer because there was no call on that particular item. I agree with you. I don't think this is a controversial thing, and we know that we're going to end up with 3 good members, one way or the other.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, did you have your light on?
No, just that I'm happy to support this motion or an alternate way, as it really, yeah, as it's been said, it's not controversial. So if folks have other opinions on how it should be done, and I see Councillor Armstrong and Granger have their lights on, I'm happy to hear from other folks. I've never been on the nominating committee and have no desire to sit on the nominating committee, so I'm happy to leave it with folks who have more experience doing the nominating than myself. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hurtle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a point of clarity because I don't expect any of my colleagues to be mind readers. I am happy to remain on the nominating committee if they would so desire, or if with this motion, if you so desire.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
I just wanted to clarify that on the sheets that were distributed to council, I did indicate that I would stay on the nominating committee. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the past nominating committee for what I got, and I was really happy with the stuff I got. So thanks for that, and hopefully we can go forward with that.
Thank you, Councillor Granger. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. As one of the members of the nominating committee, I'm willing to stay on that committee. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So we got the Deputy Mayor's questions answered as we went around the table. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. The motion is passed with 1 negative vote. Thank you. Moving on then to, under administration, to item 7C, repeal of policy HR-06-021. We've dealt with this issue before, of course, because we had given 7 days notice, and this is our final approval up for consideration, and that recommendation therefore is that Municipal Council give final approval per Section 48 Sub 1 of the Municipal Government Act to repeal policy HR-06-021, COVID-19 vaccination. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Hurtle, and a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion on the motion, please? Two lights on. First, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Mattart. I will be supporting the motion, but as I previously stated at Committee of the Whole, it is vaccination is one of the best tools to fight COVID-19, and we're not out of the woods, and I encourage everyone to get vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hurtle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as I've said before, at other opportunities, any opportunity we have to repeal policy is demonstrating that we're taking a clear assessment and continuing assessment of what we're currently doing. And I absolutely love to make the motion to repeal any and all policies and bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Debate? I can comment, if I may, that I subscribe to what the 2 previous speakers have already said. There's a fine line between mandatory compliance and voluntary compliance, and we can, of course, always continue with voluntary compliance until we feel that staff is in jeopardy, and reimpose mandatory compliance at another time. So I, too, will be speaking in favor of the motion. There being no further comments or debate, all those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. The motion is unanimously passed. Thank you. Moving on to item 8, Mr. Brown. Inspection and Enforcement Services. We're going to have Mr. Brown address us concerning council appointment of a building official. Mr. Brown, when you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This morning I'm here to request an appointment of a building official, which originates as the appointment of a building official to administer and enforce the Nova Scotia Building Code Act, as well as a recent casual building official position. The province of Nova Scotia has adopted the Nova Scotia Building Code Act, which references the National Building Code of Canada. By adopting the Act, the province requires each municipal council to be responsible for the appointment of building officials as set out in Section 5 of the Act. This appointment allows for each building official to administer and enforce the Act, regulations, and building code in their area of jurisdiction. This past year was one of the municipality's busiest construction years, which saw an increase in permit applications, permits issued, and an increase in conducted inspections. Currently, we are on pace to surpass last year's numbers, with the anticipation that this trend will continue in the future for the municipality as well as the towns of Kentville and Berwick, also serviced by the municipal staff. The municipality of the County of Kings has a total of 3 building official positions, 2 of which are currently staffed by full-time employees. 1 building official position has been vacant since July of 2022, with recruitment ongoing. The recruitment of a qualified candidate, as required under the regulations, has been unsuccessful to date. To assist with the workload, this vacant building official position is currently staffed by a casual employee, working part-time. To assist further with the workload due to the staff reduction and to ensure that service delivery is not affected, excuse me, we were able to engage Mr. Mark Jameson as a certified level 2 building official and fire official for a casual part-time position. Mr. Jameson is also assisting the towns of Middleton and Annapolis Royal with their building inspection services, and in the past has assisted the town of Wolfville. Section 5.2 of the Nova Scotia Building Code Act states, a building official or building official shall be appointed by each council to administer and enforce this act in the municipality. The financial implications: this falls within the departmental salary budget. It aligns with the strategic plan under good governance and supports the core program. There are no other alternatives, as this is a requirement of the Act. The implementation is appointment approval. There's no engagement necessary. And before you is the recommendation that Municipal Council hereby appoint Mark Jameson as a building official for the municipality of the County of Kings as required under Section 5.2 of the Nova Scotia Building Code Act while employed with the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any questions of clarification from any councillor regarding Mr. Brown's presentation? Seeing none, then I thank you, Mr. Brown, for your presentation. It's not necessary for me to reread the recommended motion. Is someone prepared to move it? Moved by Councillor Harding, seconded by Councillor Windsor. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Granger.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say thanks, Terry, for since July keeping business as usual, especially on a super busy year. So your department did a great job, and it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think we're all aware of the pressures that are under the department and your people at the moment, Mr. Brown, so we do appreciate all the work that's being done. And the good news story is that we're growing at a reasonable pace, and the bad news is that it's difficult to find people, as it is in many occupations. But we would certainly welcome new people coming in these capacities. So thank you for your presentation. Is there any further discussion then on the motion? Seeing none, we have a mover and seconder, do we not? Yes. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimously passed, and we welcome Mr. Jameson in his new official capacity with us. Moving on to item 9, Committee of the Whole recommendations, which are in your agenda package for the members of the public and those listening online. Committee of the Whole recommendations are fully debated by the entire council sitting as a committee as a first consideration of items, and it's generally a Committee of the Whole that we receive presentations that influence some of those decisions. So when the committee has debated things, it makes recommendations to council in its open capacity, with an opportunity for councillors who have changed their minds in the interim or to engage in further debate concerning the items. But here we are with the recommendations from the Committee of the Whole. The first has to do with the proposed new policy IT-07-002 mobile devices. And the recommendation from Committee of the Whole is that Municipal Council provide 7 days notice per Section 48 Sub 1 of the Municipal Government Act to adopt policy IT-07-002 mobile devices, which for purpose of understanding of the audience is the manner in which councillors and staff employ the use of their mobile devices, amongst other things. Do I have a mover of the motion? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, a seconder, Councillor Killam. Discussion. Any further debate on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favour or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimously passed. Thank you. Item B has to do with the Committee of the Whole having received the Operating Accountability Report for the period ended March 31st, 2022, and recommending it on to Council. And the recommendation is that Municipal Council receive the General Operating Accountability Report for the period ended March 31st, 2022, as attached to the October 11th, 2022 Budget and Finance Committee agenda as an information item. Could I have a mover of the motion? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. All those in favour or otherwise, please vote now. The third, while we're waiting for the results of that vote, has to do with the Operating Accountability Report for the period ended March 31st, 2022 on special project reserves. This motion has been unanimously passed, and we're moving to that recommendation, which is that Municipal Council approve the transfer of $202,308 to the Special Project Reserve 61-4-460-381 relating to unspent funds from approved project budgets as detailed in the 21-22 approved budget. Do I have a mover of the motion, please? Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, this has to do with, for public purposes, this public information, this has to do with monies that were set aside for special projects that we weren't able to get to at the appropriate time. They're still on the books, still need to be done, but in the meantime, the funds have to be slotted in another fund in order to carry them forward. All those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. That motion is unanimously passed, and the fourth recommendation, rather, from the Planning Advisory Committee has to do with the Operating Accountability Report for the period ended June 30th, 2022, and the recommendation from Committee of the Whole is that this Municipal Council receive the General Operating Accountability Report for that period as attached to the October 11th, 2022 Budget and Finance Committee agenda as an information item. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, a seconder by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. The motion is unanimously passed. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, we have 4 items of correspondence which has been received by council and it is in your packages. Go ahead and have a motion to receive that correspondence, please, officially. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Granger. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. We receive items of correspondence often by the way of criticism, sometimes by the way of thank yous. In this case, we have letters from the Hants County Exhibition thanking us for our financial support, and from Stage Profits thanking us again for allowing them to participate in our grant process. They were successful in receiving funds for their projects. And a letter from the Minister of Environment and Climate Change in response to a letter that this council directed me to send to him on behalf of the concerns of certain of our citizens on the North Mountain. And this is receipt of his letter of acknowledgement. And the last item was a letter from a female volleyball team that we had supported at the Canada Games, and they actually brought back some medals to prove that they were worthy of our support. So happy to do that. Further discussion, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Just wanted to quickly further plug the upcoming Stage Profits production that will be happening in the spring of Jesus Christ Superstar. We did support the review show last year, but it does promise, as Mary Hanneman points out in her letter to us, to have motorcycles and a rock band, and it would be great if council went out to support that pretty incredible theater group. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Cumming.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to let the folks out there know and council know that Councillor Granger and myself will be bringing forward that basically the recommendation that came forth from the group on the North Mountain regarding aerial spraying. Hopefully being able to do that this afternoon at the Rural Caucus meeting. Stay tuned, I guess. Thank you.
Thanks for that information, Councillor. Councillor Hurtle.
Thank you. Is there still opportunity to give a verbal report from a meeting that was held yesterday?
Under the very next item, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So yesterday we had the VCFN and the VCFN Authority meeting. Just going through some of the discussion points. So there was a connectivity or a intermittent connectivity issue with one of the fiber lines, and so the committee voted to move with a testing option of installing a permanent monitoring device that will cost in the range of $10,000-ish, but that's within the budget of the VCFN. Then there was some discussion on access control to one of the locations in their old Kentfield building. I say old because it's old to us as council in our new building, but that's where some of our networking equipment and fiber still connects. And so there was discussion on key card access and some other access concerns there. And then following that, we had an update from Mr. Livingston on finances. There was a closed session discussion, and then moving on to the authority. So for those who may not be aware, but there's the VCFN and the VCFN Authority. The authority is absent are non-governmental partners. It's a little confusing, but that's the way we have to structure because of the MGA. And with that, there was a discussion on some broken fiber on Bly Road. It's roughly 700 meters of buried line, and we're looking to move that to the recently installed power poles to get it out of the ground and potentially reduce any breaks. And that will come with a cost, but that will mostly be covered by the VCFN. If there's any overage that it cannot be covered, that is by policy covered by Kings County. And then there was a closed session contract negotiation following that discussion as well. That is everything, and if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Councillor Hurdle, any questions regarding the councillor's report? Councillor Windsor, your question wasn't regarding that, was it?
No, it is.
Okay.
Provide verbal report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving then to Councillor Windsor's verbal report.
Thank you, Mayor, and apologies for not having this in writing. I need to make sure I do that in the future. Just on the Valley Wren, we had a great meeting with the province on Friday. There was 5 people into the valley from the province, and we had selected a group of 5, which we felt was a representative group from here, including myself as chair, the CEO Jennifer Tufts, the chair of the Valley Board, Jennifer Boyd, who's quite engaged in the IMSA, and Mayor Snow, in lieu of the Berwick Mayor, Mayor Clark, because we wanted that longevity. I've been only on the board for 2 years. We wanted that longer background. And I had to apologize to Dick, who came into the meeting thinking it was a little more open, and we couldn't accommodate him because I had calls from other councillors, particularly from Kentville as well, who wanted to participate. But it was very positive. Some of the messages, they were very receptive around the table. We'll see what that translates to. But we really stressed the point that we're dealing with some of the issues in the IMSA, but we can't deal with all of the matters. For example, we are proposing a 3-year renewal or an advisement of withdrawal. Well, if the province is there year over year through their contribution agreement, that leaves still a lot of uncertainty. And so we're asking that they give that contemplation. We're also talking, we strongly discussed the notion of we're in the broad geographical area, yet when certain members hopped out, they receive all the benefits of all the paying members. And so to give consideration on how that might be dealt with. Probably that was the 2 prime ones amongst other things. So we felt it was very positive, and we think our timing was good. It's at the start of their review. So we're of IMS, or of RENs, so we're hoping that it pushes them in a good direction. We really stressed how important economic development at the regional level is, and how the local municipalities and organizations are the focal point of economic development, and that needs to be recognized, and that they also need to participate in the REN LOC. They put in significant money, and so they need to be there, not only to represent, but also to be part of that liaison, and to be totally in the know of what's going on, and to see the things that needs to be attended to at the provincial level. We also spoke about the fact that the amount of contribution by the province, which we have usually matched, hasn't changed for years. I don't think it's changed since the beginning of time, and that needs to be revisited if they want to appropriately fund economic development. Second point on the REN is that I think you've just received a note on the provincial Partners in Progress Conference, which is a provincial conference happening here on November 7 and 8. And so you're encouraged to participate. We know you're not all going to show up, but it would be good for some people to put in, and I don't think there's any fee to register. So for people to put in some time there would be great. On the King's Regional Rehabilitation Centre, we've agreed as the members that I would do the reporting. On the positive, the province has appointed 2 members, which takes some of the stress off the group, and particularly our 4 members, where we determine generally whether there's going to be a quorum or not. And so that's positive. Regional sewer, we still haven't met. Staff is taking all the appropriate time to reconstruct a capital plan, which really the need was highlighted when we had a bid closed $2 million over budget, and it really blew up our capital plan. So we didn't want to piecemeal a decision. We wanted to do the decisions in the context of the whole. But it's imminent. The meeting is imminent, I understand. And I just had one further question on the committee reports. Given the new role for, I think we can call it the Mayor's Committee over the IMSA, the two boards in particular that are now under their jurisdiction, will there be an ongoing reporting from the Mayor's Committee on those 2, namely King's Transit and Valley Ways?
Shall I answer that question, or shall I ask you first whether you're finished with your report?
I'm finished, and you can speak to that as you see fit, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. The answer to the question is yes, I'd be happy to bring forward reports regarding those organizations as we move along through this 2-year pilot project when the mayors, during which the mayors form the board for all of those. Does anybody have any questions before I throw a question at Councillor Windsor on his report? No? Councillor Windsor, in your meetings with surrounding the issues of the Regional Enterprise Network, was the government aware of the fact that every time a participant, a municipal participant, opts out of that organization and stops paying its portion of the costs of that organization, that some 65% or so of that shortfall is picked up by this municipality?
I don't think we were that specific. We didn't discuss how the impact is distributed. We had a broad discussion, including the fact that we've got small members who really, in the scheme of things, affordability is a big issue, to be able to put their voice around the table. You know, the $6,500 or $7,500 base is a big deal for some. So you know, we talk about affordability in terms of personal matters, and we want members to participate here particularly. But we wanted them in that discussion on financial and their contribution to consider that sometimes it is too financially challenging. We want them in, but the financial engagement requirements is a little hefty. So, you know, in their scheme, when they're doing their review, consider those things. And it was great that we were, you know, they talked about how they needed to get the smaller units, before we got to this actually, we need to renew or economic development in the really rural areas. So that point was brought home to them that, here's a factor here where you could help, or a situation where you could help out. When we have a REN organization regionally and some entities are challenged to participate because of the cost.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions arising out of mine? We got the cart before the horse here, but are there any further verbal reports? No? Then looking to Councillor Harding, do you have anything further to add, Councillor Harding, to your report regarding Greenwood Water Utility Source Water Protection Committee?
No, I don't.
Any questions of the Councillor on his written report? Councillor Harding on Kings Point to Point Transit Society Board, further to your written report, anything else?
No, I just want to mention, Mr. Mayor, that Shelley Mullins, our chair, has stepped down, and Councillor Goddard from Berwick has taken over for now. I'm not sure how we're going to proceed, but I'll let everybody know as soon as I do in the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions of the Councillor on his reports? No other verbal reports, then I'm looking for a motion to receive both written and verbal reports, please. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Killam. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favour or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moves us along to number 12. Any other business to come before the meeting before we hear comments from the public? I see none. Then at this point in the meeting, before we adjourn, I'm looking for any members of the public who may wish to address council. And if you do, then you come to the mic at the podium, introduce yourself, give your place of address for the record, and we promise not to attack you at all.
Maybe.
Carry on.
Good morning to you all. My name is Jeannie Allen, and I live in Medford, and I'm here as an individual concerned about ethics. And I have to say that I'm glad to be here today to witness your COVID-19 vaccination policy being rescinded. And unfortunately, you will go down in history as the Kings County Municipal Council who brought in this blatantly discriminatory policy of taking away freedoms and rights from a segment of your constituencies, innocent people who did nothing wrong. They did nothing. Now, we can probably forgive you initially for that because we were all fooled at the beginning. I don't know about you, but I hate being fooled. And I hate even more having to admit that I was fooled. Public health told us, and we believed them. We trusted them. They told us there was no early treatment for COVID. Turns out that was not true. Fooled you. Then they told us that ivermectin was a horse drug, unfit for human consumption. Remember Dr. Tan on national TV telling us that? And then Dr. Strang reinforcing that news here in Nova Scotia? Turns out that wasn't true. The truth is, the discoverers of ivermectin won a Nobel Prize for this medicine and its use in treating humans, not horses, but humans for parasitic diseases. Wouldn't you think that Dr. Tam and Dr. Strang, as medical people, had to have known that what they said was untrue? Or would at least have checked it out? It's on Google. Unbeknownst to us, ivermectin was pulled from the shelves, and your doctor and mine were not allowed to be able to prescribe it to help us as part of early treatment. Fooled you. You trusted public health and accordingly brought in this exclusionary policy targeting some of the people you represent. But we can somewhat understand that, for we were all fooled. However, when questions were raised to you as to the science and the reasons behind these policy restrictions, this council didn't do its due diligence. You didn't require from public health and your political masters the actual science or other proof of what they said. Although the Emergency Health Act that was brought into Nova Scotia clearly states restricting rights must be demonstrably justified. I know that you didn't do your due diligence because I personally emailed each of you asking for the written orders and the scientific data backing up that policy, without which you could be open to legal liabilities. You, individually and as a council, own that. A very recent court decision from the Nova Scotia Court of Appeals, just last week, reminds us that transparency and justification are required any time there is an infringement of our fundamental freedoms. Truth is coming out on a regular basis now. Mainstream media can't report it because they've signed on to the trusted initiative throughout the pandemic, which didn't allow them to say anything negative about the government narrative. But the data now worldwide is showing that these vaccines are neither safe nor effective, and worldwide the data is showing that the highest risk of transmission, severe illness causing hospitalization and death is in those who have had boosters. In other words, the more shots we get, the more at risk we are of becoming unhealthy, susceptible to major illness, and dying. We won't be fooled anymore. No longer can the ineffectiveness of these vaccines be blamed on those who did not take them. Transparency and justification are needed at all levels. Our elected and appointed officials have to earn our trust all over again, including this council. But back to today. I'm glad to be here today to actually witness that policy being rescinded. Today, we make progress on reconciliation. For myself and on behalf of all those who have been hurt by this offensive policy of discrimination, I ask a few things. Policy has been rescinded. That was my number one. Secondly, that in your policy-making protocols, you put safeguards in place requiring actual evidence and reasoning when interfering with human rights, so this can never happen again. And thirdly, I ask that you publicly acknowledge that you discriminated against a segment of your people who did nothing wrong. And lastly, I ask for a public apology for the same. These last two, the public acknowledgement and the public policy, can easily be done through your newsletter that goes out to all of Kings County. Thank you for your time and attention today.
Thank you for your presentation. If anyone has questions, they'll put their lights on and I'll be able to let you know what we're good right now. I want to make it clear for the purposes of the record, based upon the presentation, that the policies that we enact apply to our own organization and not outside this organization. In case there was some misunderstanding about that, it was not an imposition or otherwise on the people of the municipality. It was a protocol that was put in place within these four walls. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Andrea Schwenke-Weil. I live at 986 Ridge Road, so I am here primarily for the Ridge, but I do also want to thank you for repealing that policy, and I have presented to Council previously on EMFs, smart meters, and 5G, and in those presentations I issued cautions about Health Canada and who their primary funders are. Related to those topics, it's what one might call big tech, and, you know, big pharma is a major funder of Health Canada, so it is in some ways no surprise that some of the recommendations they have made in the last 2 years have led to a lot of damages. But primarily, I'm here today to thank the PAC and for the questions and comments that were raised regarding the Ridge Road rezoning. I was particularly impressed with Citizen Gagnon and Councillor Windsor, and I really appreciate the level of thought and the recognition for our roads' united desire to protect agricultural land, and I look forward to the public hearing, which I think is a really important step in that whole process. So I'll see you all again on December 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hello and good morning. For those that don't know me, my name is Greg Davidson, and I currently reside at 974 Ridge Road in Wolfville Ridge. I wish to convey my feelings toward the rezoning application by Mr. Travis Mills. First of all, I want to make it clear that I have no malice towards Mr. Mills or his endeavors. I wish to say that we have industrial parks and other commercial properties located throughout Kings County for just such business ventures, and that rezoning property in rural community would be like myself or others wishing to start a farming operation in downtown Wolfville. I don't think that would fly, nor should it. One only has to look at what's happening with the droughts in British Columbia, the prairies, and other parts of the world due to climate changes that are real. To know and understand the importance of protecting farmland is more important now than ever before in our history. I, for one, object to the rezoning application and wish to remind the county councillors that you are elected public officials who are elected to serve your communities respectively, and we, the public, expect no less. Now, there are plenty of people in the community who don't care what goes on in their communities, but there are also many of us who do. I believe this rezoning is not in the best interest of the citizens who reside on the Ridge Road, and to even consider this application is illogical and nonsensical. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Again, I'm watching lights for anyone who wants to ask questions of clarification, and I'm not seeing any thus far. Is there anyone else who wishes to address council? Now's your time, because we're going. Yes? Certainly.
I must admit this isn't the best way I've had to get to meet my neighbors in my community, but it has given me the opportunity to meet some of my neighbors, and some I've known for a long time, some I've never met before, but it has given me the opportunity to meet some of them and get to know them a little better, and for that I'm grateful. Thank you.
That's a good thing. Thanks for mentioning that. Yes, ma'am.
I'm the most reluctant person in this room, I can tell you, for being up here.
Well, you're the last one up, so you overcame it.
My name is Sharon Head Atwell. I live at 1235 Ridge Road, and I'm probably responsible for starting to garner all these folks together. And that was because I was the only person that received a notice of the public hearing on the 20th of July. So I started running around my closest neighbors trying to get them to know what was happening as well. We were all a little surprised by this. But I want to begin, I guess, first off by saying that Travis Mills is my neighbor, not just the person that has started this rezoning. So I feel I have a personal relationship with Travis. I know his children. His children have been in my home many times over the past several years. I knew his wife, Miyoshi. And so this has been a very, very difficult decision for me to take this position. I have had to wrestle with all kinds of emotions for this because I care deeply for him. So the point I'm making here is that this is not a out to get Travis situation or his business or anything in that kind of regard. I and all of us here are not opposed to him as a human being, as a neighbor. This has been a last resort for us in our sense of trying to protect a community that we dearly love and one that we feel is worth protecting. We have a culture on Ridge Road that is uniquely ours. We are neighbors, we are family, we are friends, and we act in those manners. We're also AGRA. We're strongly AGRA. And that is reflected by the number of full-time farming families that we have engaged on our road. But we're also small-scale farming, and we have a lot of people on our road that have small endeavors and that are still considered their main way of keeping themselves going. We have a food insecure province, and we feel, as our community feels totally, that even if you have 1 acre or 2, you can contribute to your family's survival. And in this time, when you go into a grocery store and you see the pricing that is in the grocery store, when you know that over COVID we could not get, those of us that still adhere to traditional means of producing some of our own food and putting our own food away still value the ability to do so. And that can be carried out on small acreage. You don't need large 500-acre pieces to do that. As a family, a Nova Scotian family that has been born here and lived here forever, I know the importance of surviving this because I was born into poverty. And poverty can help you to learn many, many things, how to survive on small amounts of everything. And so it's imperative because many of our families still survive by what they produce. I want to give you a couple of examples because we have a number of family members on our road. But my uncle, or my husband's uncle rather, because I don't personally have any family here available much, shared his crop with me this year of a lot of turnip and a lot of squash. And he did that because mine failed. And so I dehydrate my food and I put it down. So that means I know that come Christmas, I've got what I need. These are small things that are intricately part of Nova Scotians' lives, that they understand this. And we need to maintain those kinds of cultures and characters, and we're losing them so quickly. And we're losing the importance of agriculture land in general. And I think it was this county that tried very hard to preserve that at one point. I know that we need housing, but this is not a housing issue. Mr. Mills is not building houses on Ridge Road. And this is not an employment issue for that. Mr. Mills' staff, he is part of 3 different companies that we know about. And none of these folks are gonna lose their job if this barn that he has, because it's still a barn. It is still being used or said on the permit that this is renovated as a livestock barn. That whatever activity that he plans to do on this, and there has been varied and many over the stories of time that's gone on here, there are more appropriate places for it. It is not similar to an agribusiness, as it has been mentioned. This is not an agribusiness. This is a construction business he wants to build. And if he's a good businessman, he'll want to build it bigger, which means more intrusion into our area, into a different kind of business and culture that already exists there. And as I said, we really just want to preserve our lifestyle. We've been called a lot of silly names, you know, a little bit backwards, a little bit against progress. We've been called, what is the new term, flat earthers or whatever it is. But we're simply people, and we simply want to preserve the type of life that we have. This is a choice we are making. Many of the folks that have moved on our road recently, and there's been many, some come from different countries, some come from different provinces, but they've all come for the same reason. Because we are Agra. We are in an area that is beautiful. We're in an area that can allow them to put a small garden in. They have a sense of community that they didn't have from where they came from. And if this kind of business is allowed to carry on our road, then we're going to lose that. There is no doubt that that's going to be the first part of us losing what we have. It's disturbing, it's stressful. There are so many people on our road that are now stressed out that it is emotionally taxing for people. And I gave you a really good example a moment ago of that, where I didn't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm the most reluctant person in this group, I can tell you, because it's taking my time, it's taking away from me from everything else I need or want to do. It is also putting me in conflict with a neighbor I would never have dreamed that I would have gone into this position with. And although we admittedly have had many discussions, different ones, on our different points of view on the value of property and land in agri-zones. So, but still, we've always remained respectful of each other. And this is heartbreaking for me on an emotional level to have to take it to this point. So if I didn't think it was worth it, that I didn't think my community was worth it, or that I didn't value it as much as I do, or the people in it, I would not be standing up here today, because I don't even want to stand in front of this microphone. I'm really a very big introvert, so I think I'm done for now. I'm looking forward to the public hearing. What I would ask you to do at that public hearing is to realize that we have a great deal of value. We're not a policy, which we don't understand. Trust me, we don't understand the planning policies. But we are indeed a community, one that's struggled together, that wants to build the future together. May not be the way some people view the future, but we see our future. And that is another point. We do care about what's happening in the future for us. It just might not be the same way that Mr. Mills sees it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hurdle, did you have a question of clarification for someone?
Just maybe a comment on partially the statement that was made. I wanted to make sure it was clear that I'm very sorry that you may feel as if you're being called names, and I don't think that would be anything coming from any of council or my colleagues or staff. And just telling you a little bit about myself and why I'm very sorry that might be happening to you. I come from a farming family. My grandparents farmed, my uncle farmed. They have chicken, beef, trees, Christmas trees, and we were very active, and I was very active in farming right up until moving to the valley, which I pursued a different career. But and many in my family still farm. So I want to make it clear that there's a tremendous amount of respect for agriculture and farmers around this table that I'm aware of. And it's even written within our policy that we respect agriculture. So thank you for having the bravery and determination to stand up and speak. That comes with a great deal of respect. And I'm sorry that you maybe feel like you're being attacked potentially. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? No? Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
I wasn't planning to speak today, so bear with me. My name is Michelle Smith. I live at 1154 Ridge Road. We moved to the Valley about 2.5 years ago. For my husband, this is a homecoming. His family has deep roots in the Valley. For me, I grew up in Long Island. I grew up in New York, in a place that looked once very much like the Valley. It was rolling fields, cabbage fields, apple farms, vineyards, and very slowly, I'm dating myself, I'm 52, so I remember back when it was all farms, and there were no homes in Suffolk County, and we would drive for hours and hours just to go fishing. If you return to Long Island today, you would not believe the story I just told you, because it looks nothing like it did back in the 70s. A lot of that had to do with the influx of people moving into Long Island from the city. And slowly, development took hold. Farmers gave way to developers, and they decided multifamily housing, subdivisions needed to be a part of progress. It was done in a way that it really didn't make sense for the farmers to hold on to their land anymore. It just wasn't profitable. But it also changed the demographics of Long Island as we see it today. When we moved here, I fell in love. I think a lot of people fall in love when you drive over the 101 and you see that view. And it either grabs you or it doesn't. But for me, I knew I was home. So Ridge Road was one of those places that really spoke to my husband. We sat in the vineyard and we looked up at the ridge, and my husband said, I remember being a little boy and playing at Style Park. And he said, I would love to live up there. Because to him, it was a prestigious place to live. We got on Viewpoint, and we just happened to see a house for sale. We drove up to the home, and Dr. Kinsman, Mrs. Kinsman's home, was the home that we decided was ours. We fell in love. We didn't even go into the house. We actually looked at the land, and the land is what made us decide it was where we wanted to be, and where we wanted to retire, and where we wanted to bring our family. We have traveled all over the world. My husband works abroad, and we are slowly pecking away at this home to make it our forever home. The decision to change the zoning on Ridge Road has given us pause. My husband's a landscape architect, so he didn't choose this land willy-nilly and decide, okay. He did his due diligence. He went online. He looked at the county records. He looked at the plans for the area. He asked the realtor, what is Kings County like? Who are they like? What do they stand for? And we were assured that it was very difficult to rezone. We were assured that the land wouldn't be subdivided. We chose this land because it was an A1 and an A2 property, and the surrounding area was an A1 and A2 properties. We wanted that rural lifestyle. We're not farmers, but we wanted the beauty of the rolling farms all around us, and we wanted that to stay. We wanted the convenience of being near the 101 and being near like in the middle of town at the same time. What has given us pause is, having lived in other places around the world, I've seen what rezoning does and how it changes. I've learned through my husband's work how that changes. He's been on both ends of it. He's worked for government, he's worked for independent corporations. And We know that property values, and that's our biggest pause. This is our life investment. We're putting into this home and into this land and into this community. Zoning is a very important tool, and it can be either utilized to maintain property value or devalue. And my concern is for my investment. And my investment has a chance of losing its value if the zoning is changed. Who's to say that this one individual, whatever they choose to do on that property, it sets a precedent in place. So that, what if my neighbors decide their farm doesn't yield what they want it to yield anymore, and a car dealership decides, you know what, we like that parcel. Once the zoning has been set, the precedent is there. Anyone on Ridge Road can now change their zoning. That is my biggest contention with the rezoning. It affects my investment, it affects my neighbors, and how the long-term view. And I often remind my children, look around the valley, enjoy the beauty while you see it, because 20 years from now, it won't look this way. And they look at me and they laugh, but I've lived that. I've watched places as beautiful as this change, and not always for the better. And I do hope that Kings County will keep that integrity of who we are today in mind as we move forward in progress. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your presentation. Sorry to be so long and leaving that silence there, but I couldn't get my light on. Is there anybody else who wishes to present before we call for an adjournment? If not, then I thank you all for coming and suffering through all that you had to suffer through in order to make your presentations at the end. We appreciate what you've gone through, and we appreciate hearing from you as well. So I wish you well, and I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded by Councillor Windsor, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. No discussion on a motion to adjourn. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimous, except for Councillor Hurtle, who wishes to stay, and he's welcome to. Well, I was hoping I'd see you at caucus, Councillor. We are adjourned. Thank you.